Unique monsters are one of the Xenoblade series' most interesting twists on the traditional JRPG formula. It takes the concept of the super boss, an extremely powerful foe that's even stronger than the final boss themselves, that you could fight at some point for an extra challenge, and instead applies it to the entire playthrough, giving a large amount of enemies that are stronger than normal ones of their type and their level that you could use to challenge yourself throughout the entire game, and of course providing a type of enemy for the multiple super bosses in each game to be. What's even better is that for battle themes, unique monsters always have one of the game's best. And today I'd like to talk about the times when those unique monster battle themes are used outside of unique monster battles, or when they're used for cutscenes in the story because they're generally used to evoke one specific thing. As such, I'll be talking about stuff in Xenoblade 1 and 2, so spoilers for those, and that's really all I have. You might be wondering why I'm specifying unique monster, not doing unique monster / tyrant. Well, that's because Uncontrollable, the tyrant theme from Xenoblade Chronicles X, only plays once in that game's main story as far as I know, which is in the tutorial that explains to you about tyrants. So, while Uncontrollable is my favorite song in the series, it definitely deserves its own video at some point. It doesn't really fit here, so we're just going to be talking about 1 and 2. And in those two games, the unique monster theme that I'd like to talk about plays 4 times for each game. So let's start out with Xenoblade 1, because that's the one everyone knows, and the song everyone knows and loves, You Will Know Our Names. It's been a thing for decades for RPGs to have different battle themes that play in different types of fights, and ones that are written specifically to evoke different feelings depending on when they play. Regular battle themes are just supposed to be pumped up, getting you excited for the generic fight that's going on. Boss themes can come in many varieties, be it intense, like an obstacle in our path for challenges that are actually difficult for the characters in-universe, or tragic, like Engage the Enemy for tragic boss fights, like a lot of them in the series are. I'm not crying, you're crying. But You Will Know Our Names is specifically designed to make you feel heroic. This is the battle theme for unique monsters, the atypical, extremely powerful paragons of their species that are terrorizing the lands of Bionis and Mechonis far more than any other creature, and when you choose to fight them, you're choosing to fight them. You're going out of your way to do something heroic and take on a challenge that no one else is able to face. As such, the song is really good and does a really good job of just generally making you feel like a badass, even though it might seem a little mocking to you if you end up losing that fight. As such, when it's used in story cutscenes, You All Know Our Names is used almost in the same way an anime would insert the OP as an insert song, and in times when the heroes are getting powered up or have renewed conviction or something like that. So, we'll go through the 4 times. Interestingly enough, if you're really good at not getting spotted by unique monsters and you never pick a fight with one, you're not actually going to hear You Will Know Our Names in-game until you get to Prison Island, because the first cutscene / story fight it shows up in is actually the fight with Metalface there when the Monado 2 gets upgraded. This makes a lot of sense. Shulk has just gotten his first major power-up beyond learning another Monado art somehow. The shackles have been released, and he's finally able to actually harm Metalface for the first time in the entire story. Plus, oh look, Fiora's there. Actually, that doesn't happen until afterwards, but same principle. Hey, guess what? Our revenge quest might turn into a rescue mission. That's a sign to celebrate and feel like you're a hero actually accomplishing stuff. It's also got a bit of the emotional charge because you're getting revenge for the Emperor, and it's supposed to be there for the power trip, because it's very, very hard to lose that Metalface fight, especially since you don't have to, actually beat him. So that makes a lot of sense there. The game must really expect you to go out of your way to fight unique monsters on your own, and yeah, that is what you should be doing, because the next time the song plays in a cutscene is actually all the way near the end of the Mechonis climb, when you're fighting Gato for the final time in Agniratha. This isn't for the entire fight, though, because it only plays in the one phase where you're buying time for Maineth to charge up her Monado and free Gato of Egil's mind control. This makes a lot of sense, because this is a very big turning point. The party was originally pretty much about to resolve themselves to agree that, yeah, I think we do need to kill Gato this time. There's not really much we can do. But then, in between phases of the fight, it was revealed that he somehow retained some instinct of his previous personality and was unable to hurt Sharla, which led to Mayonnaise being like, you know, you guys are cool. That guy probably was cool when he wasn't brainwashed. I could actually do something about this. I just need you to buy me some time. So, it's not really a last stand thing, like, yeah, we're gonna go out with a bang. It's, okay, we could turn the tables here. We could actually give ourselves another ally against Egil, and, well, yeah, Gato doesn't join the fight there. He is instrumental to everyone not dying later on, so I'd say this is a very good representation of a turning point. Of course, the third time it plays is the biggest turning point of all in the plot, and probably one of the best cutscenes in the game in general. That being when Shulk comes back with a replica of Monado to save everyone in Colony 6. Keep in mind, this has occurred a good half-hour plus of gameplay and cutscenes after Mechonis Core when Shulk was shot in the back and presumed dead. He has not been in your party since, and all you've had is required fights and cutscenes of everyone realizing things seem to be really futile and that Zanza is going to get what he wants in the end. Of course, you got the whole thing with Fiora trying to get Shulk to wake up, her and Melia reconciling, and all that great stuff, when suddenly you get hit with a bunch of betrayals by people actually being in the Trinity, and you have to fight the Telethia, and, well, yeah, the rest of the party can hold them off. They're not really getting too far without Shulk, which is, of course, when he comes back, one of the most badass entrances, probably only being matched by Dunman's entrance from much earlier in the game, somehow grinds down a Telethia's back while slicing it open at the same time, and, you know, the song that's designed to make you feel like a badass hero is probably the only one in the OST that's applicable to a scene like that, if you really think about it for more than a second. Finally, though, the last You Will Know Our Names occurs very close to the end of the game, actually past the point of no return, after which you can't save and are forced to go back to Prison Island. This is in between the phases of the Dixon fight, when Shulk and Fiora achieve their weird glowy power reminiscent of the Monados of the gods that they had, which I guess is sort of symbolic of Shulk almost achieving his god status, or just the general idea that mortals can ascend to the same height as the gods, or just something like they had been touched by the ideas of the gods, Shulk by Zanza's desire to actually have friendship, and Fiora by Mayonna's actual personality. And they're doing their thing. It's like a coming together thing. All the peoples of the world, because you got Shulk the Homs and Fiora, who's apparently biologically indistinguishable from a Machina, unless a doctor examines you or something. Something like that, and it's also a student surpassing the teacher type moment, because remember, Dixon was basically Shulk's father for a good decade of his life, and was the one who encouraged him to try and seek out the secrets of the Monado, all that kind of stuff, and then of course, this triumphant making a stand thing very quickly gets flipped back over to the tragic once the fight is over, and you get the whole really touching scene of Dixon not wanting Shulk to see him die, and you're crying before you even get to the final fight. That's all 4 instances from Xenoblade 1, and it's kind of interesting that it's basically used as Shulk's character theme throughout the game. It makes a lot of sense, the main character's theme being the theme for the toughest fights in the game, and the ones where you're being the biggest hero while playing as a hero, even if you're not actually playing as him in the party, because you still get visions and stuff. And it's only once shows up at times when it doesn't really directly apply to Shulk. It could sort of be the Monado theme, because it shows up when you get the Monado 2, it shows up when Mayonna's using a Monado, it shows up when the replica Monado shows up, and it shows up when Shulk and Fiora somehow channel the powers of their Monados without actually having them. So it could be that kind of thing, but 3 of the 4 occurrences are Shulk specific, so I think it was kind of designed to be where a Shulk character theme would be if characters in Xenoblade 1 actually had their specific themes. Of course, Ricky gets one, but he's Ricky. If anyone deserves a theme, it's him. With that, though, we can move on to the second game, which is kind of interesting because it actually has 2 separate unique monster themes. Now, this on its own isn't particularly interesting because X actually has multiple as well. Uncontrollable is the one that plays for the vast majority of tyrants, but A few late-game tyrants have their own theme, which is the quote-unquote super boss theme, even though not all of them are considered super bosses by the community. And then Telethia the Endbringer also has its own theme. So there's precedent for unique monsters having multiple themes in one game, but the cool part with Xenoblade 2 is that the "You Will Blank Our Names" unique monster theme plays for the first time in a cutscene, and the theme that plays for unique monsters before it is a different one. I'm only going to be talking about the "You Will Blank Our Names" themes in detail here, but it's worth mentioning that the unique monster theme for Titans prior to Morardain and a couple afterwards, which is called "Those Who Stand Against Our Path," is a reference to "One Who Gets in Our Way" / an obstacle in our path, which is the main boss theme of Xenoblade 1. It's kind of interesting how the regular battle theme of 2 has a bit of a "You Will Know Our Names" riff in it, so it's kind of like, yeah, if our regular theme has "You Will Know Our Names" in it, how good do you think the "You Will Know Our Names" theme for this game is going to be? And then you get "Those Who Stand Against Our Path," which is, in my opinion, probably the weakest battle theme in Xenoblade 2 as a whole, although I do think 2's battle themes as a whole are better than 1's, so that's not really too big of an insult. I just don't think it's as good as the regular battle theme, so you start fighting unique monsters, and wow, that's a little disappointing if you came to the first game. But then you beat Chapter 3, and you get Mythra popping out at the top of Elethra Ruins. And then you hear, "You will recall our names," which, yeah, as far as unique themes go, it is definitely second only to Uncontrollable in terms of how good it is, and just generally how it fits the mood. Uncontrollable doesn't necessarily try to invoke the heroic person doing badass things mood anyway, so out of the heroic person tries to do badass things mood songs, Recall Our Names is definitely the best one. And as for the scene when it comes out, whoo boy, this is a good time to get your insert song first playing. This is Rex, in revenge for Vandom's death, pulling out the full power of the Aegis for the first time, and completely trouncing Malos and Akos, who, yeah, the first phase of that fight is legitimately difficult. That's a wake-up call boss to a lot of people, especially since you can't rely on Pyra carrying you for it. And it could take a long time and multiple tries just getting them down to half health to get the cutscene. Then Vandom dies, and then, all of a sudden, in terms of power, he's not missed, because with Mythra, you could then just do the second phase of that fight, which is just as much HP as the previous one, so much faster. It's a good power trip thing, and I really like the implementation there, where the instant you get the character dying, you get a power-up, and then you get the super badass power-up theme that plays, hopefully power trips you through the end of the fight, and then it immediately cuts to the sadness part, with his burial and stuff at the end, which I like because it gives you the power trip from the power-up you get, while also having the sad, introspective, remembering the dead guy moment that doesn't get interrupted by the fight having to continue. I said before how Know Our Names is pretty much used as a theme for Shulk, and it turns out that Recall is pretty much used as one for Mythra. All 4 times it plays throughout the story, be it in a cutscene or just in a fight, it's at a time that's strictly important to Mythra's growth as a character overall. First time is when she awakens for the first time in the story, so yeah, that definitely makes sense. But the second time is at the end of Chapter 4 when Morag first joins you. Now, the song starts playing when Morag comes out, and obviously plays during the fight with Mick and Petroka, and stops playing after the fight, but in that scene, what do you got? You have Mythra working together with Rex, with Pyra, and with Morag and Brigid. Not really something she did much previously in the story. She's getting better at working together with people and is able to forge bonds again, which is something she didn't want to do for a while. So while yeah, it plays when the badass character joins your party and makes you feel badass because now you're winning, it also is an important point for Mythra's character growth. The next time is only 1 chapter later in Chapter 5, when you're fighting with Jin in Temperantia. This one is kind of interesting because it doesn't show up in the cutscene at all and is just the battle theme for that fight against him, but this is the fight when Jin reveals himself to be a blade to everyone in the party. This is when Haze dies, Mythra gets really shooken up by that. Makes a bit of sense once you've played Torna, and I do think that this is an important character point for her, because first off, Haze dies. Second off, she sees that Jin probably isn't going to be as redeemable as she'd hoped, and I don't really know what change it has in her, overall, but it's very clear that it does change up her worldview and her opinions of certain events and certain people. 2 has a lot more battle themes than 1 did, and as such, they're able to shake up things a lot more near the end of the game in terms of what music plays, so the last time you see Recall Our Names as a required point in the story is a lot sooner than it would be for Xenoblade 1. That being pretty much the equivalent of Shulk waking up in the first game, Numa's awakening. And yeah, there's not really much else to say. This is probably the most on-the-nose time since Mythra awakening, because, wow, it's Mythra's character growth. I'm good with myself now. I can accept the power. I'm okay with Rex taking that power out of me. I'm working together with Pyra. Like, it's pretty obvious what the character importance for Mythra there is, but also the making you feel like a badass and giving you a power trip for getting new power thing is definitely the most on the nose, because this is when you get control of the most powerful character in universe, not necessarily the most powerful character in game, but you also get to fight Jin and Malos. Again, very similar thing to the whole Mythra awakening thing. It's basically the same thing, but Jin and Malos instead of Akos and Malos, and the characters are more powerful. But also, you can't lose this fight at all. Rex does not go below 1 HP no matter what you do. And also you get Permanuma, so it's like, it's giving you a bigger power trip than you could possibly have at any other point in the game. And it gives you the power trip song. Not really much else to say. Again, there's really no other song that you could possibly use here. And thus we reach an end. As always, thank you for watching, though I guess this is a bit easier to do this time than usual, because it's a bit of a video on the shorter end. But that's okay, because I'm sure a lot of you will be looking forward to what I have cooking up for next week, because that would be Melia getting her own game set after the events of Xenoblade 1. Not really much else for me to say other than you should probably look forward to that one. Yeah. This is Luxin signing off. I should learn how to end this kind of stuff better. Bye.